Hey there, I'm Anissa. My family said, don't even think about Thanksgiving, it'll embarrass us. So I cut off the funding. But it wasn't just about missing one holiday. It was the years of lies, manipulation, and control that came before it. Imagine being the only one left out of your own family, while they're pretending everything's fine. But here's the kicker. It wasn't just a lie. They'd been draining me emotionally and financially for years, making sure I'd never leave, until finally I decided enough was enough. Curious about what happened next? Stay tuned, and I'll tell you exactly how I broke free. The wind outside was crisp, that kind of autumn chill that makes you pull your coat tighter around your shoulders. Charlotte was dressed for the season. Red and yellow leaves swirled around the streets, an early hint of Thanksgiving decorating every corner. It was late November 2024, and I was standing in my small apartment, my fingers curling around the warmth of my coffee cup. The sounds of the city outside felt distant, almost muffled, as if I could finally hear my own thoughts. It was supposed to be a peaceful time, you know? Thanksgiving had always been a time for family, even if I had started dreading the annual gathering years ago. But something about today felt different. Maybe it was the call I received earlier from my mother. "Don't even think about Thanksgiving," her voice crackled through the phone. "You'll embarrass us." I didn't even have to ask what she meant. The words landed on me with the same numbness they always did, and yet this time there was something more biting about them. I had been expecting it for years, but there's something about hearing it out loud, spoken so casually, so devoid of any hint of love or warmth. The conversation quickly escalated into something far colder than usual. She continued, her words wrapped in politeness, but it was all too obvious. "We're just trying to keep the atmosphere peaceful. It's best you don't show up." No apology, no, "we miss you." No sentiment of anything that could resemble a connection. Just a stark, impersonal rejection. I felt a sudden rush of heat, my body tensing up. How many years had I spent trying to please them? The endless hours spent covering their mistakes, picking up the pieces, pretending that I could make them proud? In that moment, I realized none of it mattered. I wasn't even worth the effort. I didn't reply right away. I simply hung up. I didn't even feel like screaming. What was the point? Instead, I quietly placed the phone down and stared at the coffee in my hands, wondering how much longer I would let them treat me like this. A few hours later, the notification popped up on my phone. The family group chat. I hesitated, then opened it. Lorena, as always, had something to say. Her message was subtle but cutting. "We're so grateful this year to have a perfect gathering without negativity. Looking forward to a peaceful Thanksgiving," followed by an endless string of likes and heart emojis. No one defended me, no one said a word, not even a hint of support from my brother, not that I expected any. I stared at the screen for a long time, my heart sinking deeper. I wasn't surprised by the message itself. No, this had been coming for years. What stung was how easy it had been for them to erase me, to pretend I didn't exist, to paint me as the problem when in reality, they were the ones that had never truly seen me. After a long moment, I closed the app. No angry texts, no petty responses. I didn't bother replying. Instead, I left the chat, a small, quiet act of defiance. I didn't need to beg for a seat at their table anymore. It wasn't my fight anymore, and I wouldn't be part of their game. The decision felt almost too easy, too natural, but it didn't make it hurt any less. I thought about it long after I'd turned my phone off. It wasn't just about Thanksgiving. It wasn't about food or family photos. It was about the years I'd spent pretending that this family actually wanted me. It was about how many times I'd tried to be the person they needed, the person they could point to and say, "She's doing fine," while I silently picked up their messes, just to get the slightest bit of acknowledgement. I didn't want to be that person anymore. I got up from my chair and walked over to the window. The lights from the street below flickered, casting shadows across the walls. The world was still moving, as if nothing had changed. But I had changed. When I left the group chat, I didn't expect anything to shift immediately. But the truth was, this small click of a button, removing myself, was going to have a ripple effect. They didn't know it yet, but their perfect family image was about to collapse under its own weight. I didn't argue, I thought quietly to myself. I didn't plead. I simply exited, and they had no idea what that small click would cost them soon. 2 days passed since I left the family chat. Thanksgiving was just around the corner, but for me, it already felt like a lifetime ago. I sat on my couch, my legs curled beneath me, the soft hum of the city outside filtering through the window. Charlotte had that quiet hum tonight. No rush, just the steady rhythm of life carrying on. The apartment was small but warm. The light from the street lamps painted long shadows on the walls, filling the space with an odd sense of stillness. I was so used to the chaos my family brought, the expectation that I'd just show up to fix things when they fell apart. But not this year. This year, I had made a different decision. The decision felt almost too simple, too easy, but it didn't make it hurt any less. I had spent years trying to make myself smaller, trying to fit into their world, trying to prove I was worthy of being seen as something other than a second-rate accessory to their perfect family. The holidays, especially Thanksgiving, had always been a reminder of how invisible I truly was. But not this year. I wasn't going to beg for a place at their table. If they didn't want me there, then I would let them live with the consequences of their decision. The phone buzzed again, another message from the family group chat. This time, I didn't even bother to look. Instead, I reached for my phone and opened my banking app. I knew what I had to do. My fingers hovered over the screen, my mind clear for the first time in a long while. I clicked on the transfer history and found the $4,500 I had sent a few months ago to secure the Thanksgiving venue for them. It was their tradition, their perfect gathering. I had agreed to help out because, at the time, it felt like the right thing to do, a daughter doing her part. But now I reversed the transfer, just like that. No announcement, no drama, no confrontation. I didn't need to say a word. This was my quiet rebellion. The consequence of their cruelty would unfold on its own, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. I closed the app and set my phone down, leaning back into the couch. The tightness in my chest had eased, but the anger remained. The family that I had spent so many years trying to please, trying to win their love and respect, was now out of reach. They would never see me for who I truly was, and that was fine. I was done trying to be something I wasn't. The phone buzzed again, this time a private message from Ronald, my father. I hesitated before opening it, already knowing the tone of the message. Ronald's words were always coated in a veneer of politeness, but they reeked of condescension. I read the message slowly. Anissa, I'm just asking that you understand your mother's intentions here. Please don't cause any scenes. This is important to your mother. I let out a small, bitter laugh. There it was. No apology, no defense, just a weak attempt at shifting the blame to my mother. The message was nothing more than a coward's way of trying to keep the peace without actually addressing what had happened. I let the phone slip from my hands and fell back against the cushions, my mind racing. How many times had I been in this position? How many times had they told me to understand them, to put my needs aside for their convenience? It was always about them, always about their image, their comfort. They never cared about how their words and actions affected me. No more. I had nothing left to give them. I let the silence fill the room as I thought back to everything that had led me here. To the phone call, to the message from Lorena in the group chat. The years of playing my part, quietly suffering through their subtle insults and glaring omissions. The truth hit me harder than anything. They didn't see me as family. They saw me as an accessory to their image, a part of the perfect picture they tried so hard to maintain. But this year, I wasn't going to fix their mess. I wasn't going to play the role they wanted me to. I was done. For the first time in my life, I whispered to the empty room, the words tasting strange on my tongue. I didn't rush to fix their mess. I simply let the clock run out, and it was only just beginning. 3 days before Thanksgiving, the apartment felt emptier than usual. The quiet hum of the city outside my window seemed distant now, almost like a memory of the life I had once known. Sitting at my desk, the soft glow of my computer screen illuminated the space around me. The words on the screen were there, but my mind was elsewhere. It had been a long time since I truly felt at peace, and yet, Something about this silence, this solitude, was comforting. I didn't have to check the family group chat anymore to know what they were saying. I didn't need to see it to feel the weight of their rejection. It had been there in every phone call, every glance, every silence I had endured over the years. But now, it was different. They had made it clear, once and for all, that I wasn't welcome in their world. And I was done pretending. The anger that had been simmering beneath the surface was starting to settle into something else, something quieter, a cold kind of resolve. They didn't want me to be part of their picture-perfect family, so I had decided to step out of the frame. But they didn't know yet what that would cost them. The sound of my phone buzzing interrupted my thoughts. I glanced down. Another notification from my cousin's Instagram story. It was a picture of Lorena looking every bit the perfect, smiling family member as always. The caption was innocuous at first, just a looking forward to Thanksgiving message, but I knew what was coming next. Scrolling down, I found the post she had been tagged in just moments ago. It was a message that stung even more than I expected. Anissa's not attending this year. She's been sick, but out of respect for everyone, she's staying home. We all just want to keep things light and drama-free. I stared at the words, the blood in my veins going cold. Sick? Drama-free? It wasn't the truth, but that didn't matter. They didn't need the truth. They just needed a reason to explain why I wouldn't be there. A clean, easy answer. A way to remove me from their narrative without confronting what they'd done. I shut off my phone and leaned back in my chair, taking a long breath. The sting of betrayal was sharp, but it was fading. In its place was clarity. I wasn't just excluded, I was being erased. They wanted me to disappear from their lives, to fade away quietly into the background. But I wasn't going to let that happen. I thought about how many times they had tried to control the narrative, how many times my role in the family was always secondary, just there for the sake of appearances. A nice, neat story where they could say they had a daughter without actually treating me like one. No more. I didn't need to be their accessory. Later that evening, I received another message, this time from Ronald, my father. Anissa, he wrote, I know you're upset, but please understand your mother. It's been a difficult year for all of us. Don't make this worse, please. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't a request for reconciliation. It was a plea for me to just accept my place, to remain invisible, to keep quiet, to stay out of their way. I read his words slowly, each one like a needle pricking at a wound that had been festering for too long. It wasn't the first time Ronald had used guilt to manipulate me. He didn't care about my feelings. He cared about keeping up appearances. And now, he was trying to keep me in my place, out of the way, because his perfect family was more important than my humanity. It was the final straw. For years, I had tried to fit into a family that didn't understand me, let alone care for me. But now I was seeing the truth more clearly than ever before. They didn't want a daughter. They wanted a prop for their perfect family image. They didn't care if I was happy or healthy or even alive. As long as I didn't disrupt their picture, I was a part of the show. That night, I sat quietly, staring out the window as the world moved on without me. I wasn't going to fix their mess anymore. It wasn't my responsibility to keep their illusions intact. If they wanted a family portrait without me, they'd get exactly what they asked for, just not in the way they expected. The next morning, I woke up with the same weight of realization, but a surprising sense of calm. I didn't have to fight for a place at their table anymore. I had my own table now, and I would build it with people who actually saw me. People who didn't see me as a reflection of their own image, but as a person in my own right. I didn't need them, and for the first time in years, I felt lighter, more free. There was nothing left to prove to them. But I wasn't finished yet. The day before Thanksgiving, I sat at my desk, the late afternoon sunlight casting long shadows through the apartment. The temperature outside had dropped, and the trees swayed with the promise of winter on its way. Inside, the quiet felt heavier than usual. My fingers tapped steadily against the keys of my laptop, finishing up the last few emails before I could finally call it a day. The constant hum of the city outside was almost soothing, and for the first time in days, I felt like I had a handle on everything. But that feeling was short-lived. My phone buzzed on the desk beside me. I ignored it at first, too engrossed in my work, but when the buzzing grew persistent, I reluctantly picked it up. It was a forwarded message from an unknown number. Curiously, I opened it. It was an email, a beautifully designed Thanksgiving invitation. The subject line simply read, "Thanksgiving Gathering, Invitation." I didn't need to open the full message to know what was inside. I clicked on the attached guest list, and my heart dropped as my name was nowhere to be found. I blinked at the screen, reading the name of everyone invited, everyone but me. The email was polite, of course, but it was clear what this was, a message that I wasn't wanted. The invitation was from Dorian, one of the few family members who still tried to pretend there was peace. But this wasn't peace. It was the final confirmation that I had been completely erased from their lives. I didn't need any more confirmation. The message was clear. You are not welcome. I wasn't surprised, but the feeling that washed over me was still hard to describe. A part of me wanted to shout, wanted to throw the phone across the room, but I didn't. I held the phone tighter and calmly read through the message once more. It was like they were rubbing it in my face, a form of passive-aggressive superiority. I closed my phone and sat back in my chair, my thoughts swirling. They didn't want me at Thanksgiving. Fine. I wasn't going to make any more effort to be a part of their perfect little world. They had pushed me out, and now they were going to deal with the consequences. As if on cue, my phone buzzed again, this time with a message from another family member, a post on Facebook. I opened it, and there it was, a passive-aggressive jab from another cousin, one of those who was always happy to stir the pot and then act like nothing had happened. Grateful for a drama-free Thanksgiving this year, with only positivity and love. So happy to be with family who make everything perfect. There it was, another slap in the face, another message meant to ensure I knew exactly where I stood. It didn't take a genius to see who they were referring to. I had been excluded from everything, and they had the audacity to act like it was all for the best, to pretend it was out of love and respect. I didn't post anything back. I didn't text back. Instead, I sat there, staring at the screen, the anger simmering inside of me. This wasn't about being upset anymore. This wasn't about defending myself or begging for their approval. I was beyond that now. This was about watching them, seeing how they thought they could erase me and not suffer for it. I wasn't going to fix their mess. They had created it, and now they would deal with the fallout. The storm inside me wasn't a tantrum. It was a controlled fury. They had thought they could take everything from me, control my every move, use me for their own selfish purposes. But this time, they were wrong. I stood up from the desk, pacing slowly around the room. I could hear the muffled sounds of the city outside, a reminder of how little it mattered now. I wasn't going to fix anything for them anymore. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the decision I had made. Let them go on with their perfect Thanksgiving. Let them think that I would just quietly disappear into the background. By the time the first turkey was carved, their perfect Thanksgiving would already be falling apart, and they'd never even see it coming. The sharp, cold air hit me as soon as I stepped out of bed, pulling me from the warmth of the covers. It was Thanksgiving morning, but it didn't feel like Thanksgiving, not in any way I had ever known. The kind of Thanksgiving where everyone gathered around the table, laughed and pretended everything was fine. That wasn't going to happen this year. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel the weight of loss, just a cold clarity that wrapped around me like a shield. I made my way to the kitchen and started brewing coffee, the comforting smell filling the air as I stood at the counter, staring out the window. The world outside seemed indifferent, as it always did. Cars passed by, people walked their dogs, and life went on, leaving me behind in the quiet of my apartment. For the first time, I was okay with that. I leaned against the counter, letting the sound of the coffee machine steady my breathing. There was something almost peaceful about being removed from the chaos I had been a part of for so long. But that didn't mean I was done. Not yet. I glanced at my phone, noticing an email notification that I had missed earlier. It was from the family's event coordinator, a name I hadn't thought about in months. I clicked open the email, and as I scanned it, something caught my eye. The Thanksgiving venue reservation. I had helped them with that. Or rather, I had supported it, silently making sure everything was in place. I didn't expect thanks. Who needed that from them? But what I did expect was acknowledgement. A flicker of realization crossed my mind as I scrolled through the details of the booking. I controlled part of this. I didn't need to go into the details. Just the thought of it was enough. I had access to the booking rights for the Thanksgiving venue. It wasn't something they knew, and it wasn't something I had ever told them. But now, it was my little secret. A quiet power I had held for months, and I hadn't even realized its weight until now. They hadn't erased me yet. Not completely. I still had the ability to make their perfect little gathering fall apart. I smiled, a cold, almost empty smile, as I scrolled back to the details of the payment. The final deadline was fast approaching. They were about to set everything in motion, convinced I would play the role they expected of me. They were wrong. Instead of sending a reminder or trying to offer a solution, I sat there. I didn't need to make a move yet. I simply waited. I'd let them sweat a little. Let the deadline loom over them as a reminder that things don't always go according to plan. Not for them. Not anymore. It felt almost too easy, too quiet. But it didn't make the anger go away. It was still there, simmering underneath. But now, it had a purpose. And it wasn't going to be a tantrum. It wasn't going to be some childish act of rebellion. No, this was calculated. This was about standing my ground. I sat at the small dining table by the window, my coffee in front of me, the dark liquid mirroring the storm inside. They thought they could erase me. But I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. I thought back to the family gathering they had planned. The perfect Thanksgiving without me. They hadn't seen the bigger picture. They were so focused on making me disappear that they forgot one simple fact. I was still here. And now I had the power to make them feel the consequences. A message flashed up on my phone, another post from one of my cousins. A photo with the same perfect smiles, the same smiling, happy faces, celebrating their ideal Thanksgiving. The caption said it all. Grateful for a drama-free Thanksgiving this year. So blessed to have a family that knows how to make everything right. I clicked off the screen, not bothering to respond. Not because I didn't have anything to say, but because I realized something crucial. They had no idea what was coming. I finished my coffee and stood up, my movements slow but purposeful. The clock was ticking. In exactly 48 hours, their perfect Thanksgiving would be falling apart, and they wouldn't even see it coming. This was only the beginning, and I couldn't wait for it to unfold. Thanksgiving morning was colder than I expected, the kind of crisp air that cuts through you as soon as you step outside. But inside, in the warmth of my apartment, I found an unexpected calm. It was the first time in a long time that I didn't feel the weight of the world pressing on my chest, demanding that I play my role in their perfect little family drama. I sat at the kitchen table, a hot mug of coffee in my hand, the steam rising and curling in the air like the tension that had been building inside of me. The silence felt different now. It wasn't heavy. It wasn't filled with dread. It was mine. I was finally alone in a way that mattered. I checked my phone as the caffeine began to settle in, grounding me. The notifications blinked back at me, mostly family-related. But one email stood out. Something from the venue where the family Thanksgiving was supposed to take place. The subject line read, "Final payment reminder." It hit me like a wave crashing on the shore, and for a second, I didn't know whether to feel satisfaction or something darker. The payment was overdue. This was it. The first crack in their perfect image. The perfect Thanksgiving they thought they were about to have. I took a slow sip of my coffee and opened the email. The final payment deadline had passed. The reservation had been canceled. I wasn't going to gloat, though. Not yet. They had no idea what was coming. The moment I realized it, I felt the weight of control shift. This wasn't some small act of petty revenge. It was bigger than that. It was about the power I had, the power I'd quietly held for months, and how they had underestimated me. They thought they could erase me, but they hadn't. Not completely. Now, they were the ones about to face the consequences of their actions, and they didn't even know it yet. I set the phone down, a quiet satisfaction spreading through me. But I didn't let myself smile. Not yet. There was still so much more to unfold. The phone buzzed again, a message from Dorian, sent in a panic, asking me for some help with the situation. It was too late for that. It had always been too late. He had erased me from the family narrative, but now I would return the favor in a way that hurt them most, by making sure their perfect Thanksgiving would fall apart without lifting a finger. Minutes passed, then an hour. I sat there waiting, watching the time slip away. I didn't need to make a move just yet. The clock was ticking for them, and I had no intention of doing anything to speed it up. They had set this all in motion themselves. Soon, I saw another notification, a frantic text from Dorian. "We need to act fast. Can you help with some arrangements?" The words were a mess, as if he hadn't quite figured out what was happening yet. I could almost hear his panic over the message, feel the unease seeping through his words. But there was no helping them now. I took a deep breath, sipping my coffee again, but this time, the taste didn't soothe me. It steeled me. I was ready for this. They wanted to paint a picture of a perfect family? Fine. I wasn't going to be part of it. Not anymore. The phone buzzed again, this time with an email from the venue, confirming the cancellation. I read it, letting the cold words sink in. Reservation for Thanksgiving event canceled due to non-payment. I wasn't going to post anything on social media or send out any angry messages. I didn't need to. They would do all the work for me. They would scramble. They would panic. They would try to salvage what they thought was the most important thing, maintaining their perfect image. But in their frantic attempts, they would reveal themselves for what they were. I wasn't going to fix their mess anymore. This time, they would deal with the consequences of their own actions. The evening of Thanksgiving had finally arrived. For the first time in years, I wasn't watching the clock tick toward the usual family gathering. I wasn't making small talk over mashed potatoes, nor was I feigning smiles for the sake of a photograph. Instead, I sat alone in my apartment, the quiet hum of the city outside my window, a far cry from the chaos I knew was unfolding elsewhere. I leaned back against the couch, reflecting on everything that had led up to this moment. I wasn't angry anymore. The bitterness that had consumed me for so long had been replaced with something much quieter: determination. I had taken control, and now the consequences of their actions were about to hit them in ways they could never have expected. They had spent their lives pretending that I didn't matter, erasing me from every family photo, every gathering, every meaningful event. But they were wrong to think I was gone. I was still here, watching, waiting. The phone buzzed on the coffee table, pulling me from my thoughts. It was a message from Tamara, Dorian's girlfriend. She wasn't going to let me fade into the background so easily. The text read, "Heard you've been causing trouble, telling lies about us. Can't believe you're doing this to Dorian after everything he's done for you." I rolled my eyes and set my phone down. The lies were starting to spread now. Tamara had already started her campaign to smear my name, telling everyone that I was ungrateful, that I'd borrowed money from Dorian and failed to repay him. As if the debt wasn't a figment of their imagination, a tool to control me, a weapon they'd never actually used until now. I wasn't surprised. I'd known this was coming. They would make me the villain in their little narrative, but I wasn't about to play along. I opened my laptop and glanced over my email. Another message, this time from Ronald's lawyer. I'd been expecting this too. The legal notice informed me that I had been removed from Ronald's will. It was their final attempt to cut me off entirely, to ensure I didn't have any ties to their wealth or their perfect family. I read the email through, feeling the cold detachment wash over me. This wasn't about money, though. This wasn't about the inheritance they thought they could control. It was about them thinking they could erase me entirely, without consequence. I took a deep breath, the kind of deep breath that comes before a storm. I wasn't going to scream or lash out. I wasn't going to engage in the petty drama they wanted to provoke. I had made my decision. I would stand back and let them fall apart. This was their mess, and they would be the ones to clean it up. I opened the email from Ronald's lawyer again, clicked the reply button, and typed a simple message. "You've made your move, so have I." I hit send, then leaned back in my chair. For the first time in a long time, I felt calm. No more attempts to placate them. No more trying to fit into their world. I wasn't a pawn in their game anymore. They had underestimated me. They thought they could push me out without facing the consequences. But now, it was their turn to feel the fallout. Minutes passed. The world outside continued on, unaware of the chaos that was about to unfold within that perfect, carefully curated family. I could almost hear the panic already starting to spread, the scrambling to salvage whatever they could of their perfect Thanksgiving. But there was nothing they could do now. The first thread had been pulled, and before they even realized it, the whole house of cards would come crashing down. The night of Thanksgiving arrived. The perfect, glossy family images I had seen plastered on social media only hours ago were now rippling into something less polished, something more real. The chaos, the scrambling, the panicked attempts to fix what couldn't be fixed. I felt a strange sense of peace watching it all unravel from a distance. It was quiet now. The phone in front of me had gone silent. No new notifications, no more messages from the people I had once called family. But I knew things were about to get worse for them before they realized what was happening. They had no idea the storm they had unknowingly set in motion. I sipped my coffee slowly, letting the warmth flow through me, grounding me. The world outside continued its usual Thanksgiving hum, distant voices, the hum of car engines, the faint chatter of strangers enjoying their holiday. But for me, everything had shifted. I wasn't part of their world anymore. I had opted out. I didn't need to rush, didn't need to push for the attention, for the apology that would never come. I knew they were out there, scrambling to put the pieces of their perfect image together. But I also knew that their perfect family portrait had already been tainted, and there was no way to undo it. A sudden memory flashed through my mind, reminding me of how I had once played along, trying to earn their approval, trying to be someone I wasn't. But not anymore. I wasn't going to fix their mess, and that realization was more freeing than anything I had felt in years. The phone buzzed again, breaking my thoughts. I glanced down at the message that had just popped up on my screen. Dorian's speech had started, and it was everything I had imagined it would be. A pathetic attempt at salvaging his dignity in front of the people he had invited to this half-hearted Thanksgiving event. I could almost hear the nervous tremor in his voice through the text, his desperate need for validation. He was thanking everyone for attending, speaking about family unity, and of course maintaining peace. But the words fell flat. There were no genuine smiles in the photos, no real warmth in the air. The guests weren't buying it. Some had already left, uncomfortable with the hollow spectacle. I didn't need to say anything. I could already feel the shift. The more Dorian tried to patch things up, the clearer it became that I was the one in control now. Not by action or retaliation, but by stepping back, by staying silent. Let them make their moves. Let them think they had everything under control. But deep down, they knew this Thanksgiving was far from the flawless one they had envisioned. Then came the call. The name on the screen read, Ronald. I wasn't sure what I expected. Maybe a text, maybe an email. But this was different. Ronald was desperate. The way he fumbled through his words when I answered the phone confirmed it. He was trying to make me feel guilty, trying to lure me back in with promises of reconciliation. I know things have gone too far, Anissa, he started, his voice trembling just enough to betray his usual control. I never wanted it to get this far. We're family. I just want you back. I'm sorry for everything. I didn't interrupt him. I let him speak, waiting for him to finish. When he finally stopped, I took a breath, letting the silence settle between us. Then I responded, my voice calm, collected. It's too late to fix what you broke. There was a pause on the other end of the line, and for a split second, I could almost hear the silence in his head, the realization of finality setting in. I've made my decisions, Ronald. You made yours. I hung up the phone, not out of anger, but out of a sense of peace. I wasn't going back. I wasn't going to play the role they had carved for me anymore. Sitting back in my chair, I let the weight of it all settle over me. I wasn't their daughter to fix their problems or to stand in for their broken family. I had let them drag me down for too long, trying to make me fit their mold. But now, I had the power to choose, and choosing to walk away was the most empowering decision I'd ever made. I looked out the window, the city lights twinkling below. Thanksgiving was almost over. But it didn't matter. I had already won. They had tried to take everything from me, to erase me, to push me out of their perfect world. But it was their turn to lose. The week following Thanksgiving was quiet. The crisp air and soft morning light greeted me as I woke up in my small apartment, the one I had chosen for myself. For the first time in years, the silence felt soothing, not empty. The weight of the past week, the chaos, the struggles, the final act of cutting ties, had lifted. I felt like I had finally exhaled after holding my breath for far too long. I stretched in the warmth of my blanket, taking in the stillness around me. No arguments, no false smiles, no games to play. The only thing that mattered now was me. The family, the toxic patterns, the expectations, they were all behind me. I reached for my phone to check the news. In an instant, I was reminded of the events that had unraveled the week before. As I scrolled through my feed, I saw a post from Ronald. It was an apology. He and Dorian had publicly shared their remorse, but the words were empty. The public image they had so carefully crafted had already cracked beyond repair. Their apology didn't feel like an act of sincerity. It felt like a last-ditch effort to salvage their reputation, to repair the illusion of a perfect family. But it was too late for them. Too late to fix what had already been broken. As I continued to read, I couldn't help but feel a quiet sense of satisfaction. They had finally shown their true faces to the world, and it wasn't the image they had tried so hard to uphold. My absence was the crack in their facade, the thing they couldn't control or deny. The world could see what they had done to me. But the satisfaction didn't last long. A message popped up from Claire, my aunt, someone who had always been on the periphery of the family's toxic dynamic. She had never been the one to speak up, never the one to challenge the status quo. But this time, she reached out. "Anissa, I'm so sorry for everything," the message began. "I see now how much they've hurt you, how much they've manipulated you for years. You've always been so strong, and I've been blind to what they've done. I hope you find the peace you deserve. Maybe your absence was the wake-up call they needed, but I understand if it's too late for you to forgive us." I sat there, staring at the screen, letting her words sink in. She was the first person to admit what had been going on. For so long, I had felt invisible in that family, treated as nothing more than a tool for their image. But now, someone saw me. Claire wasn't just acknowledging my pain. She was acknowledging the toxicity that had ruled our family for years. "Thank you, Claire," I typed back, my fingers moving quickly as the emotions flooded in. "I'm doing better, and I'm finding my way. But thank you for seeing me." I closed the message and put my phone down, feeling a strange sense of closure. My aunt's apology didn't undo everything, but it was a step in the right direction. It was a recognition of my worth, something I had been starving for all my life. The next few days were spent quietly reflecting on what had happened. The fallout from the family's actions had left them scrambling, but they had no one to blame but themselves. I wasn't going to fix their mess anymore, and I wasn't going to be their scapegoat. I decided it was time to move forward. No more dwelling on the past, no more trying to repair something that was beyond saving. I began to set new goals for myself. I focused on my career, on the things that brought me joy, on my mental and emotional health. For the first time in years, I felt like I was in control of my life again. As the days passed, I realized just how much I had grown. I had spent so much time trying to prove my worth to a family that would never understand me. But now, I was free to be myself. I didn't have to hide who I was, or shrink myself to fit into their mold. I wasn't going back, and I was finally okay with that. As I reflect on everything that has happened, on the pain, the lessons, and the moments of clarity, I realize that sometimes the hardest part of growth is knowing when to walk away. It's not about abandoning your past, but about recognizing that your future is worth more than the weight of toxic relationships. We all have our breaking points, those moments when we realize we've been giving more than we ever received. And when that happens, It's okay to let go. In life, we often hold on because we're taught to cherish family above all else, even when they don't offer the same respect, love, or support in return. But I've learned that no one, no family, no friend, no person, should have the power to make you feel invisible or unworthy. You are your own person, deserving of peace and happiness, free from the constraints of people who only see you as a tool to maintain their image. So, if you're out there feeling stuck, feeling like you're constantly trying to fix the messes others have created, just know that it's okay to stop. It's okay to say enough. Take a step back, take a deep breath, and remember, you are allowed to prioritize yourself. You are allowed to let go and build a life that reflects who you truly are, not who others want you to be. I want to leave you with this question. Have you ever been in a situation where you had to choose between fixing someone else's mistakes and taking care of yourself? What did you do and how did it feel? Let's talk about it in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences. And before you go, if you enjoyed this video, if it resonated with you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Let me know in the comments if you found something meaningful here, or even if you didn't. Your feedback is important to me. Drop a 1 if you felt a connection with this story, or share where you're watching from. I love hearing from all of you. And if you're not a fan, that's okay too. Let me know why, and I'll work to make these stories even better for you. Thank you for watching, and I hope you'll join me for the next story. Take care of yourselves, and remember, your journey is yours to define. Until next time.